Okay, so welcome everybody to day 2 of our 3-day worthy experience. And hopefully everybody was able to listen to the replay about yesterday. I went over the 4 key aspects, I believe, that are important to clear your energy to get you to go from stuck to moving again. So today, Pat is going to give her expertise on Feng Shui, clutter, and our space, our energy in our environment. So take it away.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I'm seeing my script in front of me, so I don't see any faces. So you can make any face you want. So to add to what we were talking about yesterday and the idea of feeling worthy, I just want to reiterate some ideas and say that we are born worthy because a sense of self-worth comes from a divine source, not a human source. But we can lose that sense of worth because life can be so dramatic and demanding that we simply forget who we truly are, to have a human experience and expand our soul. Sometimes we, as women, allow ourselves to help others. We lose ourselves to the point where we're not living our own lives. So if I were to, just use some quick phrases, I think Jackie and I, these are phrases that came to me, that we're helping women move from, I've got to be everything to everyone, to I'm not supposed to save the world, but I can help who I can. And from the me too, which is TWO, to me first. And from why is this happening to me to what do I want to create? When life gets overwhelming, we feel out of sorts and get obsessed with our worries for our future and concerns about our past. That kind of thinking takes us out of the present moment. That's when the self-doubt creeps in and we feel stuck without the energy for our own lives. When we lose our sense of self-worth and it gets worse, we give our power away without even noticing it. From a divine perspective, our only real responsibility is to be in alignment with our whole self first. That's where healers come in. They help us let go of what is not ours to carry or to live with so that we can live in the present moment. And that's important because the present moment is where your life is actually happening. So what do we experience when we don't feel worthy? Here are some feelings that might resonate with you. Isolation, not belonging, not being good enough, waiting for our life to begin, feeling stuck, having no joy, living with confused thinking, feeling shame, feeling guilt, feeling anger, and not being able to express any of that, afraid to speak our truth, afraid to take charge of our own life, physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, and biggest of all is forgetting that we all have the power to heal ourselves. Feng Shui helps let us go and it helps us heal. Feng Shui is a feeling thing, not a thinking thing. Mm-hmm. And I view the principles of Feng Shui as healing. To build on what we learned yesterday, that sometimes we carry the energy of others and how that energy can hold us back, the same thing is true for the environments we live in. We can feel stuck in life because the energy of our environment or our space, as we call it in Feng Shui, is stuck. My way of helping people get back on their path and back to a sense of feeling worthy is to help them get into alignment with the energy of their space. Every one of us is a sacred being on our soul's journey. Since our space is an extension of us, our space is also sacred. And the principles of Feng Shui address that by removing the distractions that demand our time and attention. I joke about it, but I'm actually serious when I say Feng Shui is not about moving your couch, it's about moving your soul. What I mean by that is that the energy or the spirit that's inside of you moves when you start to move the objects in your environment. So how did I get into this? After years of working together with my husband, I was ready to change my life because I recognized that it was not my work, it was his work. And I was ready to separate in my space what was work energy from what was life energy. Sometimes when we work at home, all of our stuff can be around us all the time, and it's like we're in work mode 24/7. In our case, we were doing artwork, we had art tables, we had art supplies, we had countertops. Everything we needed to create artwork for 10 years was in our living room. And I was ready to shift all that because it felt like I was stuck. You know, he was flowing because this was his work, but I was like not able to, I felt anxious and I felt like I couldn't rest. I had no downtime. And what I learned was when I claimed my space, that was the first step in claiming my own life. We live in an old mill building. So beyond the fact that I had so much stuff in my living room, the space itself was overwhelming to me. We have high ceilings, the walls are big, the windows are huge, we have an open floor plan, and the design is confusing because there's 40 of these condos inside of a building. Understanding this space has been a challenge, and we've been here since 1989. So I was really overwhelmed. Understanding this space took me many years. When I was home, I felt anxiety, but I couldn't seem to get out the door. It was overwhelming me. I couldn't even think clearly about what my next step was. I couldn't even figure out what my next step was. Then I read an article about a Feng Shui consultant who talked about space and the meaningful nature of the energy around us. I hired her as she helped me see how the space was affecting me and made suggestions. It changed my life. I'm so much happier now, but it took a while. It was a process. I learned so much and I ended up signing up with her school, the New England School of Feng Shui, and that was 20 years ago. Can't believe it. So the way I look at it now, we have a relationship with everything in our environment. We look at it, we walk by it, we pile stuff on it, we remember when we got it, who gave it to us, or how much we paid for it. That's a daily interaction. That's a relationship. When we get into alignment, we automatically get back to that sense of worthy and on our soul's path and what we want our life to be. That's where the magic is. It's not the magic that people write about in books. Oh, if you put these amount of fishes in a fish tank in one particular area of your house or whatever. It's not really about that. The magic is, and my favorite definition of miracles is that miracles happen when there are leaps in awareness. And what Feng Shui does is help you raise your awareness to how your space is actually affecting you. When we align with our space, we remove distractions. By setting up our space to feed our energy, we remove the amount of attention and focus it demands on us. We get more ease and flow, and we have the energy to pursue our lives. During COVID, we've all spent a lot more time at home than ever before, and we've probably been looking around and seeing things we like and seeing things we don't like. Feng Shui gives us the vocabulary to tweak the energy of our space to align with the energy of our lives. I love this work, especially when it changes people's lives after they make the changes in their space and they feel the difference. So the purpose of Feng Shui for me is to create a supportive environment for the individuals who are living in the space. Feng Shui is personal. Everyone is different. Everyone is in a different stage of their life. Everyone has their personal preferences. Everyone has their own energy. Everyone has their own space. So the changes that we recommend as Feng Shui consultants are most powerful when they're specific to a person. This is why it's hard to get general information from books, because it may make sense in the book, but then when you look around your house, it doesn't make sense because you run into an air conditioner or a heater or a pellet stove, or there's things in the way of, people often ask me, all right, so when I set my bed up, does my head have to face in the north or whatever? And no, it doesn't. There are people that do a different kind of feng shui, but those are usually, that compass school is what is based on astrology and the cardinal directions. But usually that's used for people who are building a home or building a structure or an office building in other parts of the world, because here it's not the same thing. We deal with the space that is there, and we meet the client where they're at. And then we ask them, what do they want to change in their life? And then we take a look at that. The principles of feng shui are based in nature and our inherent response to energy. Natural energy can be translated into man-made environments. For example, if we live next to a busy highway, that's the same as living next to a powerful waterfall. It can make us feel anxious and rushed over time. We as humans, we need downtime. So living next to a powerful waterfall that never really changes, that's not easy to do. And people tell me often, oh, it doesn't bother me, but it's not that it doesn't bother them, it's that they're not aware of the effect on them. If we live next to a stagnant body of water, that's the same thing as living with lots of clutter. It's the same energy, and that energy can make us feel stuck in our life. If we live in a high-rise apartment, for instance, it's like living in a treehouse. We might be looking down and need more energy, need more earth energy in our lives, feel more grounded. I've often said I live on the 4th floor in this building, and I've been saying for years, I really miss the earth, because when I leave my condo, I have to walk down the hall, then I have to get into an elevator, and then I go to a parking lot, and I'm never really on the earth. I'm never really on grass. I really miss it. If we face a wall when we work at a desk, it's like facing a hill. Our vision is blocked, and it's difficult to focus because we are feeling vulnerable as our backs are not protected. There's another way of using an analogy here, and this happens a lot. You're driving your car, and all of a sudden you find yourself behind a semi-tractor trailer. You cannot see what's in front of you, and it feels very claustrophobic to me. I need to have a vision that is open, and that's usually just for a short period of time. But if you're living in a space, or if you're working in a space where you're facing a wall, there are ways we can get around that, but it creates the same kind of claustrophobic energy that blocks our, I would call vision, and blocks our sense of opportunities. And one of the things that I recommend when I'm in a house that is small is to recommend artwork that has a horizon line. So if people can't see anything when they're looking out their window, at least they can use artwork to help them see something that extends beyond the actual physical wall. So when you look around your space, some basic questions that you can ask yourself are you fighting with your space because it's so distracting and demanding your attention? Can you focus? Can you relax? Can you sleep? Do you feel okay cooking in the kitchen? How are your relationships? Is your health okay? Is money coming in? Do you have a supportive community? Do you feel like hiding versus getting involved in the community? Do you feel stuck? What do you think you might want to change? Are you looking for more opportunities? A better relationship with your spouse? Do you want more fun? Do you want healthier finances? Do you want to learn about yourself? Are you able to connect with your creativity? Do you want to heal the past? Do you need to feel safer? If a room is not being used or just doesn't feel good to be there, it's usually the feng shui and how the energy is flowing. And I have a really good story here. There's a woman that, well, she wasn't, I wouldn't call her a woman, I would call her a young woman. So she's just learning about her space and learning about relationships. And a friend of hers was going to be traveling, and she asked this first woman if she would mind taking care of a painting while she was gone. So the woman whose space it was wasn't crazy about the painting, but she felt obligated because this person asked her for a favor, and she said, okay. What that person didn't tell her was that she was going to be gone for 2 years. So this room was not used for 2 years because the woman whose space it was hated the painting, but she felt like she had to keep it up on the wall because she told this woman. So that's a great example of giving your power away. If it's your space and your space is an extension of who you are, and someone who's not even there owns the piece that you don't like that's on the wall, it's going to affect your life. And she told us, you know, in the class that we were in, that she never used that room. So of course, on a consultation like that, there's a big conversation around boundaries and around relationships and around questioning the person about, well, what is it that you're really looking in your life to do? And would you like to use your entire apartment instead of this room apart for this person who's not even there? So we get into very interesting conversations about life. And this is why I'm saying when you move your couch, you're not just moving your couch, you're moving your soul, because we get into deep conversations about, well, what is it that you want to attract in your life? So when we set up our space to feel good, we have the energy and the enthusiasm to pursue what we really want. I remember when I first started shifting the energy in my house, I didn't even know what I wanted. I couldn't even think clearly enough to say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, but what's next for me? I had no idea. As I took to heart the comments and recommendations from the Feng Shui consultant, my head got clearer, my thinking got clearer, and it was amazing. And it was very emotional, actually, to move some of the stuff because it was connected to not my energy, it was someone else's. I didn't understand how it was impacting my life. So I have a title here, how does it work? Aligning the energy of the space with our own energy helps create ease and flow so we can focus on what we really want and how we want to feel. Feng Shui has ways to explain how the space that we're in relates to what is happening in our life. When we decide we want to change an area of our life, we take a look at the particular area of our space to see what's happening with the energy and to make changes that will help shift that energy from a negative to a positive. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, which can go on for a very long conversation, and that is before we even do Feng Shui consultation as it is known as the structure of the process of consultation, of the techniques that we would be filtering through when we walk around and we hear the stories of the people living in the space and what they want to change, we look at clutter first, because clutter creates blockages in energy. And those conversations are really interesting because we talk to the person about what these items mean to them and why they are here and and we make the connection. We cannot move the stuff only if the person in the space is interested in moving, but we can raise awareness to them for how it's affecting their life. Clutter can be defined in many ways. It's not just messy stuff. It's things we don't like, things we don't use, things that are broken, things that are unfinished, things that we have negative emotional attachment to, especially stuff that we've inherited from other people that we feel obliged to keep, even though those people aren't even alive anymore. And there's a whole series of beliefs around that about being disrespectful in some ways, of not keeping those things when they really aren't something that we like or something that we want to keep. So I think the important thing for me as a consultant when I go into people's homes is to just go very carefully and to really understand the energy of the person and their belief systems. Like we talked about yesterday, our thoughts and our belief systems are extremely powerful. And if people really feel that they can't let go of something because of the responsibility that they feel towards that person who gave it to them, it's totally up to them what they do with that thing, but we can only raise the awareness to what that means for them. What I would hope that I do when I talk to people is that they're more aware and mindful of what they allow in their space going forward. And they don't allow things to come in that have negative attachments to them so that they don't have to worry about getting rid of it. You know, but that means setting boundaries, and setting boundaries means you have to really know who you are. So the way that I like to talk about clutter is it can affect our energy in 4 main ways. Clutter demands our attention and our focus, because every time we walk by it, we think about it and what we have to do with it. Number 2, clutter demands our energy. We dust it, we maintain it, we move it, we store it, etc. Number 3, clutter can drain our finances. Clutter costs. So what I tell people is a suggestion of an exercise that I got from this book called Clear Your Clutter with Feng Shui, written by Karen Kingston. She was one of my teachers 20 years ago. And she recommends that just to get an idea of how much it's costing you, to take a pad of paper and pencil and walk through your house in every area that you look in, every room that you look in. Estimate what the percentage you feel is clutter in that room. So say, for instance, some rooms have like 10% clutter, or a basement and a garage and an attic might have 100% clutter. You add all of those percentages up, and then you divide it by the amount of areas that you were looking at. And what you come up with is a percentage, an average percentage of how much your monthly mortgage or association fees, like in my case, or your rent is going towards having stuff that you might not even want. The last thing I like to say is that clutter can drain our spirit. It's a constant reminder of what we haven't done yet. And I think a good example of understanding that is in Connecticut, and probably around the country, I'm not sure, but certainly in our climate, in our with our winters, houses are designed to have a garage that we drive into in the bad weather. And so we enter our homes through the garage. So what we're doing is we're coming through all of the unfinished projects. We're walking by, think about yourself after a long day, it's been a hard day at work or whatever, and you're coming back and you get out of your car and there's the garbage. Or there's the half-finished projects that have been sitting there for months. Or there is a collection of sports equipment that is just kind of thrown around. And we all have this because kids aren't adults and they do their thing, and then we don't even notice it till we can't move our car anymore. So the point being that as we walk by that it kind of, if you watch your body, you might notice that your shoulders go up, or you're protecting yourself, or it's not a fun feeling to walk by clutter. And it would be a lifestyle change to change either walking by this stuff, or what I tell people is, you know what? Go through your front door at least once a week. Feel what it's like to enter your home as your place of like a haven from the world. It's kind of hard to feel that you're going into a place where you can regenerate your batteries when you have to walk past all of the kinds of clutter that are usually in garages. So people have, I've heard all the stories, and people say, well, it's practical. Well, yeah, it's practical, but think about the energy that you're carrying when you come into the house. And one of my teachers actually was this clutter teacher. She lived half of the year in Bali and half the year in England. And she was an odd duck, but she had amazing understanding of energy. And she said that culture was very, very sensitive to environments and sensitive to space and sensitive to energy. And they had a practice when they stood at their front door, they brushed themselves down. And it was because their philosophy was that every place you've been during the day, you're picking the energy up from wherever you've been. And so because they considered their homes sacred, they would brush that energy off before they went into their homes. So we could talk about clutter for a long time because everybody has it. They say they don't, but you know what? Everybody has it because clutter is defined in many ways. So one of the quotes that I like to, because another thing that I've noticed going into homes is that women may be in charge of the entire home, but sometimes they don't even have a space for themselves. So I say to women who are about to shift their lives that claiming your space is the first step in claiming your life. Back in 1929, the famous writer Virginia Woolf said, quote, "If women are to write fiction, they must have money and a room of their own," unquote. Mm-hmm. So we may not be interested in writing fiction, but we do want to feel like we're living our own lives. And it's hard to do when you have lots of children, and as they're growing up, things get, well, they have immediate needs, let's just put it that way. And sometimes we put our needs aside. So when they grow up and they leave, now it's time to get back to ourselves. And sometimes for some women, it's pretty scary because they don't know what they want. They miss the chaos, but they are sort of glad the chaos is gone. So it's really, because I've been through it, I feel like that's one of my passions, is to help women get through that period. So what I like to say with using Feng Shui principles in the space, you can get to that point where you love where you live, you love what you do, and you love who you are. That makes everything different. So my work, I feel, is not to figure out what a client's soul's purpose is, but to help them get into alignment with their space so they can figure out what it is that excites them and what they want to do with their life. So that's pretty much what I have. I think we can do a lot of questions and answers from here, but I do want to give you homework to add to what Jackie did yesterday. And what we like to say in Feng Shui is that it all starts at the front door. So your front door is basically what you're putting out to the world. And it's also the place where all new opportunities come and all the opportunities outside the outside world come into your life. So what I would like you to do is sometime go out of your front door to a sidewalk if you have it, or to the road, and look back at your house. And if you don't love your front door, what do you think you could do to shift that? Ask yourself, does it feel welcoming? Ask yourself, is there anything broken? Is there a broken doorbell? Is there a broken screen? Is there an empty pot with where a plant should be? Is there a dead tree, Jackie? Fix anything that's broken. And what I would love to tell people is that when they drive by their front door and they see their front door, they absolutely love it. Because when we start to love where we live, now our energy shifts, and then we can go and do whatever we want, because now we have created a supportive environment for ourselves. So beginning at your front door is something we can all do, you know, and make sure the light is working, make sure the numbers can be seen from the street, make sure, in some cases, I know this happens a lot, and I was just at a house 2 weeks ago last week, where there is no path from the street or the mailbox directly to the front door. So I think that that's a much more complicated thing to talk about, but that happens a lot, especially in this state with very old homes. Who knows where the road was before, but for some reason there's no path to the front door with some of these historic homes. And sometimes they even block them off so they're not even using them. But a lot of people who live in suburban areas, there's usually a path that we can look at and say, is it really what you want? You know, does it feel good to you? If it feels good, one of my teachers was Denise Lynn. She's written a lot of books. She's Cherokee, and she's about 6 feet tall with long black hair. And at the end of each day, she would give this Cherokee yell at the end, which was pretty frightening. But at the same time, it was her culture. It was pretty exciting for her. And her phrase was, she's written a lot of books called Sacred Space, and that's her, I think, her famous one. But she says, basically, if it feels good, it's good feng shui. And the idea being that getting into the zone of feeling what's there versus what you think is there, that's the work. And you get better the more you do it, but sometimes you need an objective viewpoint to say, well, how do you feel about the color of your front door? Do you like flags? Do you like the numbers? Do they stand out? Those kinds of things. So that's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
I had a question. I took a couple notes. You remember when you said it doesn't bother me when you're living next to a home or would you say a waterfall, right? People will say it doesn't bother me. And it's so common, I think, that when I talked yesterday about being in your head or being in your body. So many times we're in our head spinning and we're not feeling what it feels like to be that. And it even goes to all the people who say, I'm good, even though you know underneath there's a volcano happening, right? So it is really interesting because I remember moving one furniture in my room that was suggested to move, and I felt vulnerable, and I wasn't expecting to feel that just by moving a piece of furniture.
I think that's a really good point, is that the vulnerability that happens when you start moving, because we do use our spaces for safety. We collect things for safety reasons. We pile things around us to feel secure. But the extreme situation with that is that it can suppress our emotions. And sometimes, you know, in this culture, emotions are not encouraged. People are encouraged to think about stuff rather than feel stuff. And actually, feeling is everything.
Yeah.
And I also think that a lot of people feel they have no choice. And so I don't go into a space and suggest people move or take down walls or anything like that, because I think that there is no right and wrong. Let's put it that way. There's alignment. So what is it that you're looking to be in alignment with, and how can we look at your space and help you get that feeling of being in alignment? And in a case where someone is living near a busy highway, because I'm picturing being on one of the highways that goes through, it's a New Jersey town, and there's just one after another of houses that are right on the highway. And I feel for those people. It's like they're in this constant state of rushing, because it's not, it might be the Garden State Parkway, I'm not really sure. It's not Newark, and I can't remember the name of the town, but you can understand why people have a lot of stress and anxiety from where they live. But the other can be true too. When you live in the middle of the woods, you don't have any connection with anything, that can be just as, that can be isolating and kind of zap your energy by no activity outside of your home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Pat, I remember many years ago, I had a friend that had an amazing, beautiful home on the South Shore of Long Island, right on the bay. Gorgeous home. But there was a beautiful, sprawling front lawn, but no walkway. And I would pull up in front of the house, and I didn't know how to get to the house because I don't want to trample over this beautiful, well-maintained lawn. And I had talked to you about that, and you said she needs a path. So she invested money in, I said, Pat said, you need a path. And she invested money in this beautiful, these brick pavers. And she said, tell Pat thank you, because that was the path I needed to walk out of this toxic relationship.
Oh, wow.
Feng Shui works whether you want to stay there or not. It's amazing. When you shift the energy like that, you clarify some things in your life. And it works whether you want to stay where you are or where you want to sell it, because it improves the energy flow of the space. It seems like such a simple thing, but we get used to living a certain way and we dismiss it and we think, oh, it's not that important, I can deal with it. But if you were to actually think about how you enter your home, what is it that you walk by? Does that feel good? Does it feel good where you park your car? Does it feel good? I don't know. There's all kinds of questions you can ask yourself. And that's why it's really hard for me to make general statements to people, because I really have to see the space in order to assess what's going on for that person. A lot of times, for instance, when you go into a garage, you're going into the interior of the house, and it feels a little awkward because what's happening behind you is a gigantic opening of the garage door, and you can't see what's behind you. One of the things that we talk about in Feng Shui is always protect your back. It feels good to protect your back. So if you're not protecting your back, your body goes on a state of alert. It's just a natural thing that our bodies do. And once you become aware of it, like there was a reason when we were growing up for the teachers to say, go face the wall when they've been bad. It was a punishment to face the wall. Now we have so many people working in cubicles where they're facing the wall, and corporations want to know why everybody's unhappy. I could tell them. Are there any questions about clutter or, right now? Okay.
It's about multiple members of the home partaking or not partaking in either restructure or rearranging or decluttering, and how I personally would approach just handling what is my responsibility. I guess I don't know whether it's something that, of course, there's a lot of questions on a one-on-one client basis. I'm sure we could go over, but in general, when there's more than one person responsible for the space, and some stuff you think is your responsibility and some isn't, or like I mentioned to you another time we were talking, I think I've no sooner cleared a nice space and I turn around and it's been filled by somebody else's stuff. Yes, I had ownership of that stuff that took over that space for a long time on that section of the counter. and I found a new home or got rid of whatever was there, made it
Yeah.
beautiful. Wow, we
Yeah.
knew what color it was and whether it matched the rest of the room.
Uh-huh.
But then it got filled. And I know I
Yeah.
heard some analogy about, well, everybody's used to being okay with this is a good place to drop stuff. This has always been a good place to drop. So I guess my general question is for a general answer about how to approach shared spaces with shared people, I guess.
So usually we talk about whose space is it really? Who's the owner? And then we take it from there, because it's really the owner's responsibility to set the tone and to set the boundaries of how the space is used. Because it gets very confusing if everybody has their own way of doing things, which they do, and especially if there's young children. And I know people in my extended family have come over here and they do things differently. They let kids be in charge. That doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
And it was not easy. They don't live with me, but it doesn't work for me when they come to visit.
Mhm.
So I had to, over the years, get a way of communicating so that I can set the boundaries and say, you know,
Mhm.
this is a condo, not a house. So the running and the jumping and the yelling doesn't work because we have neighbors on the other side of the wall. And that's not easy to communicate to kids who are small. You know, they don't really understand that. So I think the tough thing is to set boundaries when you don't want to set boundaries, but that's pretty much where that story goes. So setting boundaries means this is how the space is used. This is how we're going to use it. No exceptions.
Sounds easy.
Oh, believe me, I know it's not. But you know what? As you begin to do it, as you begin to shift, they do come along. They just have to get used to it as you go through it. And they are watching you as an example and as a role model. So if you can feel good about setting boundaries for yourself, you can feel good about setting boundaries for the house, because you know what? They're better off for it.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
It's worth pondering.
So this is uncomfortable for you. What do you think?
Well, I'm relating it to my specific situation, you know, even though it's a general approach, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I tweak this to work for me, you know? So it's something I, you know, definitely have to ponder.
Well, what do you think is the reason that it wouldn't work?
I think that with the amount of people sharing the space I have, whose space is it anyway is probably the hardest part to answer, the hardest question to answer. We'll just take the kitchen, for example. My son, husband, and I all cook, or we all don't, whatever. And we all do have different ways. Besides the fact that, you know, we all do like tchotchkes, I call it, which is every tool in the kitchen industry you could think of, and having the right tool to slice an avocado versus a garlic press, and, you know, so lots of things have to have a place, and a place for everything, that sort of thing. And everyone has their own way of emptying and filling the dishwasher and habits and things like that. But as far as, you know, the approaching, well, let's do it this way, or let's store all of these things over here so we all have access and we can all see where it goes. I mean, it amazes me that they can unload a dishwasher and never remember how to load the dishwasher, or to go get a fork and then not know where to put the forks when they're finished using forks. I mean, in the silverware drawers that we have, and you know, I don't know. So I guess I'm rambling, but trying to figure out that we are many minds, many personalities. We all kind of share ownership. So I'm not sure I can answer that question to start approaching some claim to this is
How to do it.
how to set boundaries. In other
Okay.
words, and this is what the guys in my family are not going to take to having boundaries very well. And I'm sure other women have the same problem once in a while.
So what I would recommend for you is that you think about what you truly want. And there's a way. You might have to have some objective viewpoint in there to help you. Is this a permanent situation?
Please say no.
No,
Are you asking?
I'm
Are you
asking you.
me? My best guess is no, but it's going on 5 years.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because they say that the feng shui of a place will affect you like 4 to 7 years in. So if everybody's happy the way it's happening now, then, well, there you go. So
Yeah.
it sounds like a conversation that needs to be had. And the idea of having every single gadget, that would be like saying, I don't care how big the room is, I'm going to have every single thing I want in this room. It's not possible.
Right.
Space is a finite thing.
Right.
So if you're going to bring something in, then bring something out so you can fit what you want. Because we do evolve in terms of the things that we want. And yes, they have some great things that you can cut an avocado with. And I have one of those things. But I regularly go through the drawers if it doesn't close, or I go through one great thing to try. And this might get you, work your decluttering muscle up. If you go into the bathroom with a garbage bag and just go to the medicine cabinet and start decluttering, it is exciting. And once you get that energy and you feel what it's like, you know the benefits of decluttering. You feel the benefits of decluttering. You get a clearer mind.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
fun.
agree.
Yeah. And sometimes it's about having a conversation with your family members and say, you know, this is really bothering me. I don't like this. Can we do something to clear this up? Is it bothering anybody else? And they'll be like, oh yeah, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
I think they're not open to it, but sometimes they're thinking the same thing, but nobody had the courage to say something.
Well, Pat knows I've been given some ideas, and yes, the rest of the family is definitely feeling the effects and has opinion about how to approach it all. And short of getting a dumpster, you know, I don't know how we're going to have a meeting of the minds, but this has been an ongoing conversation. So
Well, I understand what you're saying because my husband is he's an artist. So his world is in 2 dimensions. He loves
that's me
it.
too. That's me too.
He's
So,
in total control on paper, but he cannot fill a dishwasher appropriately. He runs the dishwasher with 5 things in it. And he doesn't see the space is my point. It's not like he's doing it intentionally. He just doesn't see it. He doesn't see the 3 dimension. He sees the 2 dimension. And in his mind, okay, if I put the glasses here, then I'm all set. But they're not straight. They're not put in a way so you could fit lots of glasses in, because at this point in my life, I don't want to be emptying the dishwasher many times a day. I want to empty it once and put things away once, right? He's not thinking about that. And it's interesting because when I went to school for meditation, to become a meditation instructor, we had to take, in order to teach us mindfulness, we had to take a daily exercise that we do and write it out. So I took emptying the dishwasher and I thought, oh, you know, this is no big deal. It's going to go fast. Well, when I started to list what you have to do to empty the dishwasher, and I realized the stress on my back, the twisting, the turning, the bending over, the reaching up to put it away. I thought, wow, I do this so fast to get rid of the dishes. And then I realized this is why you can have back problems that all of a sudden show up a week later, but you don't know what you did because you do it so fast and you don't even realize you're doing it so fast. So it's very involved. When you start to deal with space, it's very involved. And like Jackie said, some people don't express that they're frustrated, and you won't know that they're frustrated with space unless you start talking about it.
Yeah, we don't have problems with expression. Well, thank you very much. Both replies were good.
You're welcome. I know it's not helpful, but you know.
Oh, no, it is. I mean, you know, we've all heard a lot of the same things over and over the years, you know, from different sources of study. But applying the practicality with many characters sometimes isn't as simple as textbook.
Sure.
You know, so,
and that's habits, because people have habits, and breaking habits are difficult, especially with young people, especially with teenagers. You know, they've got so much they're trying to figure out. Space is their least concern. You know, they're on their phones communicating with everybody. That's some critical thing to say about them. You know? So.
Well, thank you for taking all that time to appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
No questions. But thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Your suggestions.
Christina says on Facebook, I just need you to come help. LOL.
Give me a call. I have to tell you one thing about clutter, and this, I hate to end with a negative note, but I was in a house once that as soon as I walked in, I felt like I couldn't breathe. And the woman had cancer, and every single thing in her house was so tight. Stuff on the walls, there was no place. If you looked at anything, there was no space around it. And everything needs to breathe. And even with the drawer, she showed me in the kitchen, she opened a drawer, she could barely open the drawer because it was filled with stuff. So it isn't like the clutter caused the cancer, but it was affecting her immune system in a negative way. And I don't think I could even have that conversation with her because she wasn't open to it. I could see that that kind of clutter can cause confusion in the mind. So it wasn't like I could have a clear conversation with her, you know, and she would have had to gone very slowly to help herself with that. And I just don't think she was ready.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody, for showing up. And thank you, Pat.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else want to say anything? Everybody good?
Everybody's good, I think.
I think
Yeah.
And I'll email you when I throw something else out, okay?
Oh, yeah. You just said that you were gonna, right. She said after a class I gave that she's gonna, do you want to talk about that piece?
Yeah, no, that's okay. The Encyclopedia Britannica, but I'll email you when it's gone. You'll hear about it.
But you can talk about in general things, saying that it had negative feelings with it. Did you notice anything when you got rid of it? Did you notice anything about walking by that space afterwards, feeling better? Or yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I do know other people that have gotten rid of things and they feel there's a freedom that comes with it.
But Pat, I think you're really right, Pat, when you talk about the emotional energy, like the woman with the cancer. She's already giving up so much, and to ask her to give up other things around her, it's the emotional depth that people find the attachment to things is really it's hard to process, see where they're coming from, why those things are so important to them.
It's like I said before, there's a relationship with every single thing that we walk by, and so many of us have been spending so much time at home since the quarantine happened that maybe it's the first time people are able to look at it, whereas before they just get in their car and leave. you know, not really dealing with it, and they don't realize the effect on them until they're given the vocabulary. That's what I saw when I first took that weekend with Karen. Everybody that went home for lunch were cleaning out their garages, you know, because they had vocabulary all of a sudden. And it's very interesting that once you know what you already know, and then you get the words for it, whoa, that's huge. And then when you connect with the idea that you have choice, that's huge also.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Say one thing, Pat, you bring up a lot of things that give me to think about, and I can recognize where I do need to do a little rearranging or a little throwing out stuff, and so thanks for that. That was very informative for me today.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I hope it helps.
Yeah.
Just go slow, go at the pace that you want to. Don't go faster than you want to go. You know, it's really important.
Yeah.
And you have to feel good about letting things go.
Well, thank you. That's it was a great listen to both of you today, and I'm glad I'm here today.
Yes, I'm glad you showed up too. Thanks for showing up.
Okay. I'm
Thank
going
you,
to say goodbye, Pat. Thank you.
Bye, Steph.
Okay,
Thanks.
well,
Bye,
Bye.
Jackie. Thank you.
bye, everybody. Bye, Kathy. Bye, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
decluttering.
Thank you.